And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now, here's a sentence that should stop you in your tracks. Within a matter of weeks, this country could have a new Prime Minister, and he isn't even a Member of Parliament right now. His name is Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and on June the 18th, a few thousand voters in a small northwestern seat called Makerfield will effectively decide whether he gets the keys to Downing Street. Just sit with that for a second. Never before have so few voters in one modest by-election held the future direction of the entire country in their hands. Win Makerfield, and the path to replacing Keir Starmer opens up almost immediately. Lose it, and nobody sees another route for him to the top. So, in the last video, we looked at the coup, how the move to topple Starmer was assembled. Today, I want to ask the bigger, harder question, the one that actually matters once the Westminster drama dies down. Forget whether he can take the job. Can he actually do it? Can Andy Burnham govern Britain? And I'm going to be straight with you and do this properly, the genuine case for him and the genuine case against, because he's a more interesting figure than either his fans or his enemies will admit. So before we dig in, drop this in the comments right now. First instinct, one word, would Andy Burnham make a good Prime Minister or a bad one? Don't overthink it, I want your gut, and then let's see if this video changes your mind either way. Because by the end of this, I think the answer is genuinely harder to call than you'd expect. Let's get into it. Let's understand who this man actually is, because his story is genuinely unusual, and you can't judge whether he can govern without it. Rewind to 2016. Andy Burnham was a big beast in Westminster, a former cabinet minister, a man who'd twice run for the Labour leadership and twice fallen short. And then he did something almost nobody in British politics does. He walked away from Parliament, 200 miles away, to become Mayor of Greater Manchester. At the time, people thought he'd given up. One journalist told him bluntly he'd jumped ship. Now, here's the bit of political education that matters, because it's foreign to how most people think about British politics. In America, a big city mayor or a state governor is an obvious launchpad to the top. It's a normal route to the White House. But in Britain, regional government has always been treated as a backwater, undertrowed, overlooked, a place for hobbyists and community activists, not national heavyweights. So Burnham leaving Westminster for Manchester looked to the Westminster class like political suicide. And yet, here's the question that should make you respect him, whatever your politics. What does it say about a man that he saw real power where everyone else saw a dead end? Was that a gamble or genuine vision? Hold that thought, because it's central to everything. Because Burnham bet on something specific. He'd watched Labour's traditional Northern heartland start to drift away, first in the Brexit vote, then to Boris Johnson, and now dramatically to Nigel Farage's reform. And he believed those voters were being taken for granted by an out-of-touch Southern elite. Back in 2016, inside the Labour Party, saying that was heresy. He said it anyway. 10 years on, that analysis looks bitingly accurate. Labour is hemorrhaging its northern base to reform. And Burnham, the King of the North as they call him, is now the most popular politician in the country, the man Labour increasingly sees as its saviour against the populist tide. So that's the setup. A man who bet against Westminster, was proved right, and is now being pulled back to Westminster to save the very establishment he walked away from. Now let's actually test whether he's up to the job. So let's get forensic, and I'm going to give you both barrels here, the strengths and the serious doubts, because that's the only honest way to answer the question. Point 1, the case for. He gets things done, and he can tell a story. Give the man his due. Greater Manchester under Burnham has boomed. Locals call it skyscraper city, and even tired old post-industrial towns nearby are reviving. His signature achievement was taking the region's bus services back under public control, painting them all bright yellow, flat £2 fares everywhere. Now, a political scientist quoted in this profile makes a sharp point about that. Bringing buses under control is, in his words, not exactly parting the Red Sea. It's a solid, sensible reform. But Burnham sold it as an epic David versus Goliath battle. Him against the greedy bus companies, him against the Thatcher legacy, him taking them all the way to the High Court for the people. And it worked. You literally cannot spend half an hour in Greater Manchester without seeing a yellow bus. That right there is a rare and genuine political talent, the ability to take a modest achievement and make people feel it as a triumph. And don't underestimate that, because governing isn't just about policy, it's about carrying people with you. So here's a fair question. In an age where every leader seems grey, managerial and forgettable, isn't a politician who can actually tell a story and connect with ordinary people exactly what's been missing? Type storyteller if you think that's his real gift. Point 2, the case against.
What does he actually believe? Here's where the doubts start, and they're serious. The single most damaging charge against Burnham is that nobody, not his enemies, not even some of his friends, can quite tell you what he stands for, beyond more power and money for the North. The profile lays it out brutally. There's an old joke he reportedly despises. 3 members of 3 warring Labour factions walk into a pub, and the barman says, "Hello, Andy." The point being, he's been on all 3 sides. Early in his career, he was so tough on crime they nicknamed him Hangman Burnham. Then he reinvented himself as an anti-police corruption campaigner. He served in Jeremy Corbyn's hard-left shadow cabinet, and now, approaching power, he's reportedly drifting back to the centre. Even on Brexit, he's tried to ride 2 horses, campaigned for Remain, made tough noises on immigration to keep Leave voters on side, told Guardian readers he'd like to rejoin the EU, then hastily backpedaled the moment Farage attacked him. Point 3, the charge that ties it together. He tells people what they want to hear. And this is the crux. A political scientist in the profile puts it perfectly. Burnham is not a man who enjoys the pressure of being disliked or shouted at. So the real question, he says, is which Burnham you get as PM, the one who fights for big, long-term things, or the one who folds the moment a room full of people boos him. Because to govern is to choose, and choosing means making people angry. So I'll put it to you straight. Is Andy Burnham the conviction politician his supporters see, or a man who bends with every wind? What's your honest read? Tell me below. Point 4. Even his enemy's best shot reveals something. Here's what's telling. When Nigel Farage attacks him, the line isn't he's incompetent, it's that Burnham is the ultimate political insider, a man who served as a minister under Blair and Brown, despite that professional northerner rebrand. And there's truth in that. The Anti-Establishment Outsider Act sits odd on a man who spent 20 years climbing the Westminster ladder. But notice, even that attack concedes he's effective, experienced, and electorally dangerous. The criticism isn't that he can't do politics, it's that he's too good at it, too smooth, too adaptable, too willing to be whatever the moment needs. Which, depending on how you look at it, is either a damning weakness or exactly the survival skill a Prime Minister needs in the chaos of modern Britain.
So let's zoom out, because the real question isn't really about Burnham at all. It's about whether anyone can govern Britain right now. Think about what he'd inherit. A country trapped by low growth and high debt. Public services creaking. The bond market's already nervous, snapping at his heels before he's even an MP. Taxes already high by historic standards, leaving almost no room to manoeuvre. As the profile puts it bleakly, if there were an easy solution, one of the 7 prime ministers we've burned through in a decade would probably have found it. 7 leaders in 10 years. Each swept in on a wave of hope, each tossed aside. That's not a personnel problem. That's a sign of a system in deep trouble. So here's the take I'll put my name to. The honest answer to can Andy Burnham govern Britain is nobody knows, and that uncertainty is the whole story. His gift for connection and storytelling is real and rare, but the doubts about his conviction are equally real. He may be exactly the down-to-earth communicator who can reconnect a broken politics with the people, or he may be a flick-flopper who folds the first time the bond markets or his own backbenchers turn on him, and we genuinely cannot tell which, because he spent a career making sure we can't pin him down. And here's why this matters to you. Some see Burnham as Liberal Britain's last hope against a Farage search that polls say could put reform in Downing Street by 2029. If Burnham takes the job and fails, a directionless, flip-flopping premiership, then the road to a populist revolution is wide open. Labour won't get another go. So this isn't just a personality question. The fate of the next decade of British politics may hinge on whether one shape-shifting mayor from Manchester turns out to have a spine of steel, or a weather vane where his conviction should be. So here's where I land. Andy Burnham is the most genuinely interesting figure in British politics right now, a man who saw power where others saw a dead end, who can connect with voters in a way Starmer never could. But can he govern runs straight into the one thing nobody can answer. What does he actually believe when the going gets hard? We're about to find out the most dangerous way possible by handing him the country and seeing. So tell me, did this change your gut answer from the start? Good PM or bad? Drop it in the comments, I read them all. Smash like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.